Green Daniel here to bring you the latest fantasy news, and as we have done before in fantasy news, I'll be starting with adaptation news, transitioning into more just general trailer entertainment fantasy news, and then finishing off with the harder core, more specific to the genre, fantasy news. So let's go ahead and jump right in. The Witcher showrunner over at Netflix has said that no, the TV show will not ever be adapting the games. Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich made the point of saying even in the long vision there is no way they would go to adapting the games. Now, this seems like a rather strange thing to be said, and I'm going to dive into this story specifically deep here and do a fantasy news theory. I do want to be clear that this is almost entirely speculation on my part, but let me try and put all of the points together here. Many years ago, a lawsuit was announced between the author of the Witcher series and CD Projekt Red, the creator of the Witcher video games. After the third Witcher game was released, the lawsuit essentially claimed that the company only ever had rights to make one game, and the author wanted to be paid much more. We have never really seen the full details released of the actual agreement between the company and the author, at least to my knowledge up to the point where this video is released. What we have seen is a public recognition from the author that he was initially offered a percentage deal from any and all games developed by CD Projekt Red. Instead, his actual response was along the lines of, "No, your games will be bad, just pay me money now," and so we got about $30,000, I believe is the equivalent. I'll put on the screen what the actual amount is for sure. So obviously $30,000 versus a cut of the sales of one of the largest, best received games in video game history was probably not a great result for this author to deal with. He was probably a bit upset. Now, the first Witcher game was a mild hit, the second one bigger so, and the third an absolute smash success. If the company only ever had rights to make one game, I do not see from my perspective how the lawsuit would have not come around only after the second game, not the third. Now, there are laws in Poland that do allow for someone to sue for a greater cut in a situation like this, and it appears the author was trying to exercise this weird law in Poland. Honestly, I find it strange. As someone who's in America, where we do not have a law that permits something like this, it seems strange to me that if you make a bad deal and another company elevates everything you've done and you benefit as a side effect with greater book sales, that you can then turn around and sue the company for a greater percentage cut. It seems odd to me, and with the phrasing and rhetoric I've seen from the author, I'm not the biggest fan of the way he's handled the situation. I even, at one point, went as far as to encourage people to pirate his books. Seriously regret that. That was me trying to be like, funny. Yeah, don't do that. He's even denied that the video games elevated his series in sales and popularity, which I find to be very, let's call that silly. Now, the end result of that, I imagine when the author finally did sell more of the rights to Netflix for this adaptation, he probably specifically put it in there that none of the story from the games that originates from the games can be in this adaptation. He wants it to be of his books, either from just he wants to really only adapt what he originally created, maybe some kind of resentment. Obviously, there are a lot of fans of Witcher who love the story that was given originally from the video games. The video games kind of pull from multiple books, but also have a whole lot of their own stuff on top. It's a bit complicated, but I don't know. This is a strange situation to me, and I'd love to see your all's response in the comments down below. Do you think the Witcher author is completely in the right here? Do you think it's more of mixed gray? I think it's probably he's justified, but went about it in the worst way possible, in my opinion. But that's just my fantasy news theory. That was a deeper dive than I meant to do. Next news. And in very related news, HBO's His Dark Material adaptation that is very soon to be released is apparently going to be very true to the source material. Something that in a previous adaptation we saw from His Dark Material, a lot of people didn't like how much they changed from the source material. So I'm excited to see that HBO has said, no, we're going to keep the religious themes, the character work, and all of this stuff, even if some people really do not like it. And for those of you who have not read this books, His Dark Materials has some pretty lofty political and religious statements to make, a lot of which I agree with, some of which I think maybe not quite so much. It's a really big mishmash of philosophy and interesting ideas, Part of the reason why I kind of bulk at it when people just throw his Dark Materials and YA. I've never seen YA be this detailed or nuanced with all kinds of layered messaging, but hey, I haven't read that much of the genre. But what do you all think of this? Do you want to see his Dark Materials be as true to the source material as possible? I do. I'm actually really excited about this. I think it is a phenomenal story, and if brought to the screen properly, could be HBO's next big success. Not on the Game of Thrones level, there's not enough source material for it to be that, but a big success nonetheless. And in not live adaptation news, a Superman Red Sun animated movie is in the work, and I'm at least kind of interested in this. I'd wish it'd be live action. That would be really cool to see, but I'll settle for an animated one. Neat. I like this idea of more of a dystopian type set Superman. It adds a lot more interest to his character, so I'm for it. And the Dune movie has wrapped production, which, wow, that came faster than I expected it. I really expected to see this one be going for quite some time, but I guess in the time frame of they do only film for a couple of months, this makes sense. I'm just really surprised, and I cannot wait for the first trailer to drop. Dune fans, I may not love the book, but I am absolutely psyched for the adaptation because of who's involved. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is being adapted once again over at Hulu, and previously in a video, Daniel Greene, not me, not Green Daniel, talked with Craig from the Legendarium podcast about whether or not a series could be too big to adapt. And while their conclusion was no, they did add the caveat that there are certain fantasy sci-fi stories that are too strange, too outlandish, too stylized by the author to be successfully adapted to the live action, at least not reach the heights of their source material. I fully believe, as Green Daniel, that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is one of those. Douglas Adams wrote one of the most iconic, interesting, absurd stories ever, and it's so his brainchild that translating it through anyone else's mind, I just feel like will not have as much character and personality as the original book of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And in fantasy news, quickie news, a street in New York will be named after Stan Lee. Cool! And in the only Marvel news we'll be covering today, thank God, Spider-Man Far From Home crossed $1 billion over at the box office, which is actually a first for Sony. Good for them. Moving on. Next news. If you're a huge Star Trek fan within my audience, please go ahead and check your local theaters. For its 40th anniversary, Star Trek the Motion Picture will be returning to the silver screen. I'm actually going to go and try and see it. I have never had a cinematic experience with Star Trek, and this could be one heck of a first way to do it. Oh, wait, yeah, I totally have the J.J. Abrams movies. Those don't really count. And in two quick trailer news, because there was a lot, oh my god, a lot of trailers people wanted me to cover, but I just chose the two that really stuck out to me. Sorry, I can't cover every Marvel trailer, every superhero thing. I'm not going to do it. But here's the two that stuck out the most for me. The Boys from over at Amazon looked really interesting. It seems like the superheroes are kind of like all powerful and corrupt, and these people are trying to get back. I like it. Check out the Boys trailer, linked in the description down below, as well as my Patreon and Amazon affiliate link if you want to support the channel, just saying. And while you're down there, if you wouldn't mind liking the video to show your support for fantasy news, I'd sure appreciate it. And Zombieland Double Tap, a sequel to the kind of old now at this point Zombieland trailer was released, and I'm actually pretty feeling it. I actually was kind of groaning when I first heard this being announced, but their sense of humor and self-referential making fun of another zombie movie right away at the beginning, like naming like these people are all Oscar nominated or winners and they're in our zombie movie. That actually kind of got to me, so I'm feeling this one. Zombieland Double Tap. I'm including it in fantasy news because it's my show and I decide what goes in. And in semi-adaptation / actual hardcore fantasy news, the Dragon Prince franchise had a big release at Comic-Con where they talked about future seasons, new stories, all kinds of things. I can't really go over all of it here, especially not having read much of the source material. I can't speak intelligently on it, so I'm going to link to all that down below. If you are the Dragon Prince fan, go and check that link in the description down below and leave a like. And in the final bit of news we're going to cover here today, and absolutely hardcore fantasy news that I am super psyched about, Jim Butcher, the author of the Dresden Files series, put out a tweet, "The end. I love typing that," signaling to all of his fans that he has finished the latest Dresden Files book. And I am very excited. I've been trying to catch up on the series before this one comes out. I doubt that will be the case, but I'll definitely get a couple more under my belt. Dresden Files, man, I have so many mixed emotions about that series, but it's good. I'll even go as far as say it's great. And if you have not already, link to my reviews are on my channel. Just go check out my channel. Just put in Dresden Files Daniel Greene. It's there. Or Daniel Greene's channel. That joke. But this has been your latest episode of Fantasy News. I know I did not cover a whole lot of Comic-Con news here, but that's because I wanted to kind of get the things that were flying under the radar a little bit, even though there was a lot of Comic-Con news still in this. But anyway, let me know which news stories intrigued you the most. What did I miss? What do you want to see in the future of Fantasy News? Leave it all in the comments down below. Share if you want to support the channel in a huge way, and I look forward to talking to you guys next time. Like and subscribe if you've not already. Peace.